Hi, this is Amy Smythe Harris, also at Amy Out Loud. So today I just wanted to talk with you about things that, as an agent, whether we're new to the business or seasoned, questions that we should ask a lender. So, kind of the very start of it is when we're talking to a lender, we need to, when we get our first prospect, we need to talk with the buyer and ask them, do you have a pre approval? Do you have a pre qual? What do you have? Have you talked with a lender yet? And if not, then you can share some list of different lenders that may fit their needs out there. But so once they have the pre approval letter, you're going to reach out to that lender and you're going to talk to them about is it pre-qual or pre-approval? Have you done desktop underwriting, automatic underwriting to see kind of how far that they've screened this prospect and that they just didn't take their word over the phone. Also, another question I'm asking the lender before we are making an offer is, what's your closing timeframes that are happening out there? Are we 30 days out? Are we 45 days out? What's realistic? So when I make the offer, that I have a realistic closing time frame. This is silly, but another question that I really want to know is their closing department in-house or where is it located? And the reason why it's important for me to know where it's located is, let's say I'm dealing in Central Standard Time Zone and the closing department is located on the East Coast. So when I'm scheduling a closing time and trying to get possession upon funding, I need to know timing because let's say I close at 3 o'clock Central Standard Time and maybe they don't fax for funding until 4 at the escrow title company. Then it may be after 4 East Coast time, and maybe they've already left for that day, or it's 5 o'clock their time. So it's a big deal for me, and especially setting a closing time for right before a holiday weekend. So another thing is I try to make sure that we're not closing on a Thursday or Friday going into holiday weekend or the Tuesday after a holiday weekend. I want to know another question I ask a lender is how close are you with the underwriter? Because remember, the underwriter is building that file. So we want to make sure that there's a good relationship between the RMLO, the processor, and the underwriter. So the processor is going to build that file to send to the underwriter. So are they all know each other? Have they done deals together? Maybe the RMLO is better friends with the processor and they work conjointly together to build that file. But maybe the underwriter has been somebody that they've aren't familiar with or don't have a relationship established with. That's a concern for me because sometimes it's taking the processor and the RMLO being able to talk to the underwriter. And also the underwriter, I want to know, are they communicating with my client? Additional documentation that they may need. Maybe it's come from the underwriter that's asking for this documents straight to the buyer versus the processor asking for those. So those are some things that I want to know. Another thing that I would want to know, and also it depends on the market conditions out there, is does the buyer need help with closing cost? Hey, Mr. or Mrs. Lender, does the buyer understand the difference between down payment and closing costs? So do they have the down payment? Do they also have the closing costs? Are they going, what type of loan are they going to do? Is it FHA, VA, conventional, USDA loan? Okay. I want to know that. Is their home contingent, the purchase of this home contingent on them selling another home? And the lender says, no, they can qualify for both. Well, I need to know that because maybe the buyer is not comfortable taking on two mortgages. So those are things that I want to know when I'm talking to a lender before I go and present an offer to the listing agent, because my job is to present my buyer in the best possible light because they're my client to that listing agent that they can convey to the seller in the negotiations. Okay. Another thing is I want to ask the lender down in the process is, have they gone over the loan estimate with them? Does the buyer really understand the breakdown of the loan estimate, the LE? And then before closing, is the lender calling the buyer or communicating to the buyer what amount that they need to bring to closing. Had they reviewed the CD with them? Do I need to go over the CD again with the buyer? And again, I also want to know the lender's communication styles. Maybe my buyer needs a lot of hand holding, and maybe this lender doesn't talk to them until right before closing. Well, maybe that's not a good match for my buyer, and then it may make them feel helpless out there and not something that I can handle because I'm not an RMLO. So I do want to know that. Do they call them every week? Do they just email them? Do they text them? What process do they use to communicate with that buyer? Also, I do like to ask the lender what, if they are using a mortgage app, what are they using? How available are they on the weekends? How late at night are they? So, if we're writing an offer at 10 o'clock at night and we are really trying to squeak through with asking for closing costs, are they available to rerun numbers, or do I need to be doing them? And that's why I want to know what mortgage app they're using so I can be as close proximity to that. Even though I'm not an RMLO and I disclaim and disclose that all over the place to my buyer, I need to be able to run those numbers pretty quickly. Another question I want to ask that lender, is there any special programs that they specialize in right now? Maybe they specialize in grants, down payment assistance. Maybe they're really good with doing 203Ks. Maybe they're great with second home market or luxury high-end jumbo loans. Maybe they do reverse annuities. Maybe they're better with farm and ranch lending. So I want to know those things so that I can make sure that that buyer is matched up with the best possible mortgage lender or the RMLO as possible. So, and again, I really, really want to make sure that my buyer understands the difference between down payment versus closing costs. So a buyer may say to you, yeah, it's FHA minimum down 3.5%. I've got that. The lender tells you they've got the down payment. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Do they have the closing cost? Do they have the money to escrow in for the closing for those? Have you done their front end and back end ratios? Especially on a conventional, I want to know if they are following the guidelines for Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, the 28, 36% front end back end ratios. Now, we all know that there's some give and take on that, depending on assets that they have or their credit rating and all of that. But that's kind of a good guideline for conventionals, 28%, 36%. So 28 the front end, 36% on the back end, and 36% is their monthly recurring mortgage plus their recurring debt. Allows them how much they can qualify for. So I could qualify them, and the lender could qualify them on the front ratios based on what they make and the mortgage payment. But once they look at their reoccurring debt, maybe it's not there for them. So that's kind of some things that I really want to stress when I'm talking to a RMLO. And with that being said, these questions make me or make you look knowledgeable and proficient and competent in your field, even though you're not a lender, you're not an RMLO. Well, maybe you are, but we're looking at this from an agent's perspective to protect our buyer that's a client when we're asking these questions. So go out there, knock them dead, kick their biscuits, and hopefully this is just part one of questions to ask a lender so that you feel just a little bit more confident out there doing real estate. See you later. Amy Out Loud signing off.